commemoration ceremony. Okay, you're watching live pictures coming into us from Ankara. As you can see, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is attending a ceremony being held to mark the 2016 defeated coup anniversary. He is attending the wreath-laying ceremony at the monument in the presidential complex. Let's also bring in our TRT World's diplomatic correspondent, Andrew Hopkins. Actually, we will come back to him in a couple of moments ago. Later, let's go back to this ceremony and listen in.
Sardan bizi kaldırdı şaha, Yemen çöllerinde sığınaklar, göndermeler geçince daha.
Okay, we are watching live pictures coming into us from Ankara, where you can see the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan attending a ceremony being held to mark the 2016 defeated coup anniversary. Let's bring in now our diplomatic correspondent, Andrew Hopkins. Andrew, explain to us, what are we seeing at the moment? I know a couple of events were already held. At this moment, we are seeing the wreath-laying ceremony in Ankara.
That's right. We're here inside the presidential complex here in the capital, Ankara, where At the moment, the Turkish president is laying a wreath at a memorial which has been constructed within the grounds here to commemorate those people who gave their lives. 250 of them 4 years ago, standing up to the coup attempt that was being carried out in Turkey. And what's special about this location here, the presidential complex, is that on that particular night, we know that tanks and helicopters came here. There was at least 2 explosions and 29 people were killed at this location. So that's 29 out of those 250 who died on that night. And after this event is completed, then we're going to have a special program of events at the Turkish Parliament, fairly close to here, where the president is also expected to speak. He's also going to be having a meal with the relatives of some of the people who died during the coup attempt in 2016, and then later on this evening he's going to make an address to the nation. Lots of other events planned as well in Ankara and in Istanbul. A light show on the Bosphorus Bridge, the July the 15th Martyrs Bridge, on which members of the public stood up to the military who had captured that bridge and sealed it off on the night in question. Open-air film shows, and also a concert, a symphony that has been composed by a Turkish composer commemorating the events of that night.
Andrew, the president just laid down the wreath at that monument in the presidential complex. You know, 4 years later, a lot of steps have been taken to bring FETÖ, who was behind that defeated coup, to be brought to justice. Can you remind us where are we now when it comes to that?
Well, there's lots of different levels as far as this particular issue is concerned, because lots of different people being held to different levels of responsibility. And I suppose top of the tree, you could say, is Fethullah Gulen, this man who's been living in the United States since 1999, who's been held responsible for the whole thing. He's the sort of mastermind, if you like. Now, Turkey's been trying for several years to obtain his extradition from the United States. It sent 7 requests outlining more than 20 charges that he should have to face, and there's been no clear decision yet, one way or another, from the United States which way that is going to go. There are other sort of ringleaders, if you like, who have been arrested in Turkey and have been going through the legal process here. Some of them, though, did escape. They are still on the Turkish government's most wanted list, and if members of the public can give the government some information about where these people are and it leads to their arrest, then there are financial rewards available from the Turkish government. And on top of this, investigations are still going on within Turkey, not necessarily for many people who are directly involved in the coup, but more sort of rank and file members of FETÖ, people who maybe were involved in charitable foundations, had prominent roles in them, also in companies with links to FETÖ, this kind of thing. So this is why we are seeing announcements like last month, which the authorities announced they were planning to detain 400 people, mainly from the military, with alleged connections to Gulen, and why we now have these figures in Turkey where something like 80,000 people here, out of a population of 80 million in Turkey, have gone through some kind of legal process here, and 150,000 people have either been suspended from their jobs or lost their jobs as a result of their connections or alleged connections to Fethullah Gulen.
Andrew, you know, Turkey experienced several coups in its history. What is the difference between the coup in 2016 and the other coups, in your opinion?
Yeah, this is a very different kind of coup or coup attempt, if you like, compared to all the rest, because I think anybody with a sort of passing interest in Turkey will know there have been quite a few coups over the years here in Turkey. But what has usually happened in those instances is that the military has turned up, or at least a group of officers from the military has turned up and told the government of the day that they were taking over. And it's been largely very little violence, even in 1960, where the Prime Minister and 2 other government ministers ended up being executed. The events around those executions were nowhere near the violence that we saw in Turkey 4 years ago, because 4 years ago, as we've said already, 250 people were killed, more than 2,000 were injured. We've had airstrikes on the Turkish parliament, we had airstrikes on police headquarters, security bases, we've had members of the military turning on each other, actively fighting against each other. We've had the chief of staff of the military, Hulusi Akar, who is now the defense minister, he was taken hostage. Turkey has never experienced this kind of thing before, the military actually firing on the country's own civilians. This was all quite a shocking experience for Turkish people.
Right, and you know, let's not forget, Erdogan was on a holiday and managed to escape just in time when all that took place. Thanks so much for that, Andrew. Andrew Hopkins, live for us from Ankara, where we just saw President Erdogan attending the wreath-laying ceremony at a monument in the presidential complex. Okay, let's cross over to Melinda Nucifora. She's covering the